Welcome to another episode of Elementary. And we're starting the year off with a big bang. Happy New Year to each of you. And I hope very much this year brings you a world of happiness, joy, and whatever else your heart desires. May all your wishes come true for this year. So today I've got the pleasure of interviewing an investor who's been in the business. And we'll get started in a few minutes. There you are. Thank you, Matthew. So, just getting started and, and just waiting for our viewers to join. But thank you so much for coming on this show. This is actually my first live show for 2023, and I'm so glad you accepted. And I can't wait to hear all the exciting stuff you have to share with us. But let's get started. Let's introduce yourself.
So my Instagram handle is actually 6 letters. It's RCCSOL.com. So RCCSOL.com. And if anyone wants to reach me, they can find me at that location. Just readjusting something. And I want to say thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is rccsol.com, and the Instagram handle is rccsol.investor. And, if you're not joining Matthew, feel free to go over there and, ask to join and see what exciting stuff he has to share with everyone. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I would say my gift is really teaching. I'm able to take very complex concepts or situations and make it very simple. And I'm also able to take bigger problems and break them down to really small pieces. And I think that's how the world works. Big problems don't generally have big solutions. Sometimes it's a big problem, but with small solutions or small causes. I've been investing since 1984. I bought my first property then. And so from then to now, it's been an interesting ride. I really, first and foremost, before an investor, I'm actually a great father. And I love being a great father. And my family is important to me. And I find that my real estate investing gives me the time to spend with my family and do things that I believe are memories that we have to make. So for me, I'm simple, but I'm very complex. I make sure I take the time to smell the roses. And I've been doing that now for about 30 years. So, life's been good.
That's excellent. That's excellent. It's important, right? To enjoy every moment of whatever you're doing, right? And enjoy life as it happens. Not, like I say, what good is it if you have no time to spend what you make, right?
It's interesting. You can't take it with you, but right? I do believe you take something with you, and that's really your knowledge. So I think it's important to pass that on to your sons, your daughters, your cousins, because ultimately that's what helps somebody maintain the things that you've made here. But yeah, you're right. You can't take it with you.
So tell us a little bit about your business and RCCSOL investor.
As I mentioned, I started investing back in '84. So I started with houses, and then buy, fix, and sell, buy and rent. So I guess today they call that BRRRR. And then after about maybe 15 years or so, I got into multifamily buildings. I started with the 6 unit to the 12 unit because I found having 30 or let's say 15 houses was great. On paper, it looked pretty good, but it was like having 15 kids. It was a lot of work because it was everywhere and different things would go wrong. So I thought, you know what, I'd love to see if I can have some houses, but I want to be able to bring my investments also under one roof. So I upgraded also to 6 units to 12 units. For the last 15 years, I've been buying 24 to 64 unit buildings, but ultimately, and I like it because I'm able to have a site super, like a superintendent, or I'm able to have a property manager, because back in the day, when I had the 15, 16 houses, I found that I come home from work because I was still working. People think you can just quit your job in 1 year. I taught college. I was a 10-year college teacher from the time I started investing all the way to the time I quit. It took me 10 years. But I found I come home after work after a hard day and I get a phone call. Something went wrong. A tree fell on the fence, washing machine's not working, some situation or issue. And I thought, wow, you know what? It looks pretty good on paper, but unless you get everything organized, you find the job that you have is not your king. The real estate becomes your king. So that's why I switched up to larger properties as well.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to create this investment business? I mean, you obviously were a successful teacher, and you like doing that piece, I'm sure, because you're still teaching. But
I came to Canada in 1972. I was 7 years old. And my parents told me, you're an immigrant. You have to work twice as hard to get as far. And I also want to own something. So by the time I was 16, I opened up a business where I would drop off cookbooks to businesses and then collect the sales and then obviously bring back the books. By the time I was 19, I was able to actually buy a house. And back then, houses were between $85,000 and $100,000. Took me 4 years to save up about $60,000. And my parents ultimately brought some money to the table to help me. But I just planned to buy one house. That was it at 19. And my brother, 4 years later, was a police officer. So he came to me and said, I want you to get involved in real estate. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm a teacher. It was my decision. I became a teacher for a reason. I invested all my time in that. And he says, I'm your older brother. I have a gun. You're going to do it. So he pulled me into investing. I didn't really go into it with the thought of it. But he pulled me in because I'm a systems guy and he's more of a visionary. So when you put a visionary together with a systems person, things begin to move. So yeah, I got pulled into it.
Awesome.
Exactly.
That's always good. Sometimes you don't see what others see, right? Others see that, or others see that they could do with, your help or your systems, I guess. So maybe you want to talk a bit more about what you do as an investing other than, I know a while back you went on a show on a podcast and you shared some insight as to some of the investing that you do or that you offer. And I mean, maybe we can break into, quite possibly what you have coming up. Like I know you've got the career path of teaching and you've got some education pieces. So maybe let's jump into that piece before we get back into the
so basically, I do work with people.
Yeah, tell us a bit about
not a lot. In other words, some people will mentor 50 people a year. I'm smaller. I'll work with probably 12 people, but I do a lot of one-on-one. And it's because I love to teach, but at the same time, I actually like to see people actually explore and expand. And it's kind of hard to tell someone how to fly a plane just from the telephone. So it's so important to get out there with them. I focus a lot today on multifamily buildings. And what I do, I'm able to find a lot of these buildings off market, which means not even for sale. And if I have to bring in a realtor, I will. But ultimately, when they're not for sale, I'm able to have that conversation and slowly, within a matter of a couple of months, plant that seed and begin to speak to the owner because chances are they've been thinking of selling probably for the last 2 years, just haven't really gotten around to it. Haven't found the person who seems to care enough about them and their future to be able to say, let's have the conversation. So again, I talk to properties that are not for sale, and I get them to put the properties for sale. And I'm also really good at bringing in a joint venture partner to buy that property either with me or with, let's say, my students. And I'm also great at actually financing those properties using some of the owners financing, or I have other investors. For instance, a lot of people that I talk to, they're between 55 and let's say 72. I'm 58, right? And I say to them, are you guys still investing? Sometimes they say they're not into physical buildings, but they have a lot of equity because they bought their buildings 20 years earlier. So I say to them, if you're not tired of investing, but you're just physically tired, why don't you still be part of our group, provide the money, we provide the arms and legs. So I do a lot of that, and I help people to do that also. And for many years, I've built. From 2007 to now, I've built about 280 houses. So 35 unit subdivisions up to about 113 units, and then 50 unit condo buildings, low rise. So I spend my time either buying multifamily buildings or helping people how to do it, or building houses, and I help people how to do that. Now, obviously, I build subdivisions, but there are a lot of people out there who they want to get into, hey, can I be a developer? Can I build? So what I've done this year, I've put together a 2-day workshop, which allows them to come and sit down for 2 days. We take care of lunch, and we take care of their booklets and everything. And we talk about the A to Z of how to build a house, because that's the foundation. Now, if somebody's like, I don't want to build, I personally believe that, people can drive a car but not need to know how a car works. I think that if you're investing in real estate, you ought to know how the real estate works, even if you're trying to pick up a hammer or not. So ultimately, I've put together a 2-day workshop for that purpose. It's January 21st, 22nd, and we'll create some kind of a connection so they can see where that is. But ultimately, I just go through, step by step. Here's how a house is built. And if somebody's looking to invest in some opportunity, they're able to understand the opportunity better. If they're looking to build a house for themselves, it's a better understanding. And if they're just getting into real estate investing, it's good to understand your product. It's good to understand your property. So generally, in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing right now.
See. Yeah, and the 2-day, that's the 2-day master.
Exactly.
The 2-day training, that's houses, ADU, garden suites, right? That's the one. Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting topic, considering where, the announcements that have come out. But before we move on off this topic, I wanted to just, you're sharing quite a lot of stuff, and I haven't actually shared some comments, but some of our viewers, Get Social with Alex says, but you're the best. So thank you, Get Social with Alex. Thank you for your input. But I wanted to tell our viewers that if you have any questions, you can drop it in the comments. I'm trying to watch for the comments as we go through. And there's also a question section, like a little question icon with a little bubble. You can drop it in there as well if you have any questions. So what makes your approach to real estate
again,
investing?
I believe you have to be very particular about what you do, right? There's 2 things to consider. First of all, everybody talks about the why. Why do you do it, right? Now, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Let's say I want to get to the moon. So that's my why. And my real estate is my rocket ship to get there. So part of my investing is understanding not just the why, the moon, not the rocket ship, the real estate, but the fuel. What fuel should I use to actually keep me going through every stage all the way to the moon? In the beginning, when I came to Canada, you know what? I looked different. And back in the 60s and 70s, that was a little bit tough. But you know what? We've all gone through something tough. But I felt second class. And I used that second class feeling from 2000, by the time I was 19 to about 29, I used this fuel. And it sort of went into my rocket. And I said, I'm going to show them. So it's knowing what fuel to use. But by the time I got to 30 years old, I felt equal with everybody else. That fuel died away. Then my fuel was nice things. Maybe I'll buy a nice car and buy a nice house and take nice trips. And, that was great for a while. And I have no issue about that. I enjoy those things. But that fuel dried up about 10 years later, meaning that, I can enjoy complex things and I can enjoy simple things. And then my daughter came along, and that was fuel for another 10 years to motivate me to get to the next level. And now my daughter's 15, and we're very close. But you know what? She's busy also. She has things that she does now. And therefore, I had to find another fuel. So the first part of why I do things differently is that I always know what fuel I require to motivate me, even knowing my why. The moon is okay. The rocket, having the real estate's good too. But literally, knowing how to motivate myself to move from A to B. And then secondly, I'm great at selling. In other words, when I say selling, I mean talking or meeting people. It's so important to talk to strangers. I've found most of my deals just by, I might be sitting at a coffee shop. There might be somebody sitting beside me. They may not even look as though they have property, but I take a moment to say hello. And ultimately, that person might turn to me and say, you know what do you do? I tell them what I do. They might be a lawyer. There's one case, this lady who was a lawyer, and she dealt with estates. And she says, there's one thing that happens when families, when somebody dies, is that sometimes families fight over the property, even though it's in the will and laid out. And she says, if I can, I said to her, well, if I can come to you and we can work something out, can I get a look at those properties ahead of time? And she says, if you're fair about it, sure. So just simple things like that. Even, I own self-storage, about 286 units. And how I got my self-storage is I had 5 cottages in an area, but I would always take stuff out of the cottages and put it in self-storage. There's a guy who ran it, an older gentleman, just a really grumpy guy. Nobody ever talked to him. But I knew that Tim Hortons was an hour away because this was up north. And I knew he drank, a double, medium. So I would bring him one anyway. I'd go up once a month. I'd just give it to him, say hi. About 4.5, 5 years later, he was dying. And he said to me, he's got prostate cancer or colon cancer. And then he said he wanted me to buy his self-storage. And I'm like, well, no, I buy houses. Self-storage is ugly. Houses are pretty. He says, no. He says, my wife is not beautiful, but she's a good woman. That was his words. He says, don't worry about a beautiful house. Just get a strong, solid house. And I said, okay. And I actually bought his self-storage. And, it's my most profitable business. So a big, long story to say to you is I know it fuels me. I know that fuel will change. I also know to talk to strangers. And you know what? Listen, learn, be kind, and ultimately great things come to you. So it's not technical, but it's the heart of all my deals. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah, be kind. It doesn't cost to be kind, right? It doesn't cost you a penny to be kind. Yet I can never fathom when people are not kind to others, because I feel that's one thing you can give for free. But so very interesting, very interesting. Definitely, I'm sure your 15-year-old has a full jam-packed social life, and and keep you on your toes. What advice would you give entrepreneurs looking to launch a business similar to yours? And I say similar because I think you have a little bit of a uniqueness on what you do and what you invest in. And then you've got the education portion as well, right? So if someone looking to launch something similar.
Well, I'd say 2 things. One is be careful how much information you take in, right? And everybody says you should read everything possible. I know some people who read 20 books a year, even read 12 books a year. Now, for me, I read about 4 books a year, and it's how you do it. Like I might read a book in January, and I'll pick about 4 or 5 points in those books, in that book that's amazing. I'll spend all of February trying to see if I can incorporate that into my life. And by March, what I learned, the 4 things, those become like a lesson, like a habit. And then I read another book. And then obviously I spend my next month trying to pick up 4 or 5 things from that new book, figuring out how to implement it, and then the following month implementing it. So if I read around 4 books a year or 5 books a year, but if I were to implement 4 things or 5 things per book into behaviors, I found that 12 behaviors, reading 4 books, but taking the time to have those behaviors gave me tremendous results. Instead of just reading 100 books and saying, oh, I read that book. What'd you get from it? Oh, good stuff. What are you applying? I apply it all. It's just good stuff. I think it's important to take the information we learn and learn how to weave it into the tapestry of your life and then have a behavior. Because it's better to have 12 behaviors in order to cause your business to work than to know 1,000 things and really not do anything, let's say, more definite. And then, of course, the second part is understanding that everything is broken into systems, like even a car. So the purpose of a car or a business is to get you from point A to point B. But a car has a steering system. It has a braking system. It has a fuel system. It has a cooling system. Each of these systems are important. And we have to have an understanding of each of the systems, how they're related to each other. For instance, if I'm able to pump the gas and speed the car up, that's great. But if I don't have a braking system, I'm going fast. But if I can't brake, that's not a good thing. So I have to make sure I have the braking system. And if I have the speed system and the braking system, but not the steering system, okay, then I can't turn the wheel. I'm not getting anywhere too fast. So it's identifying what are the systems in my business. What am I great at? What I'm not great at? I can have other people do those things, but I still must be aware of what a braking system does, so that I'm able to show that I have a vested interest in those things. So it's just a combination of that, knowing the systems, everything breaks into it, and then the first part that I talked about. So if you consider those two things, I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned earlier about, coming to Canada and being an immigrant and, getting over those hurdles. And, I think most of us out here are immigrants from someplace or another, and have come here. Some people are not. And that's a challenge for everyone, right? But it's about, rising and looking up beyond that. I mean, the great part about Canada is it's made up of immigrants. But I do know that back in the day, when you came as an immigrant, there were a lot more hurdles to jump over. So then there is I think people are more welcoming now and than back then. So that's excellent. So just in wrapping up, I wanted to recap, some of the trainings that you offer. So at any given point,
what I do, I generally do a mentorship, and it could be 6 months or it could be a year. And how I'm a little bit different than other people, in a sense, is I spend a lot of time with that person, which means I do phone calls with them. I actually talk to potential owners with them. I go see properties with them. I sit down and negotiate deals with them. I write out the contracts with the realtor and with my student. We go view properties. We talk to potential people to become funders or financiers. So it's more of a hands-on approach that I do. And to see that program, if anybody has a pen handy, it's just rccsol.com/training. And it outlines that entire program. Again, it could be a 6 month or 1 year, but really it's about more one-on-one, and we build a relationship so that the following year, there's no silver plan or gold plan. We know each other, and we may even invest together. And then, so that's more buying houses or buildings. And the other part is obviously building houses or building buildings. I do have that workshop coming up at rccsol.com/build. And I tend to want to show people, this is how you should think when it comes to building. People don't understand something, that really building is about water and it's about air. You have to think like water. Where is water going in my property? And ultimately, you can't stop water. You have to redirect water. So again, those are the two things that I really focus on teaching, and then people get a really good result. Now, I will share this with you. A lot of people, they do things and it may fail. So let's say that someone's a hair cutter for a few years, and after 5 years, they walk away from it. In my case, I was in the Army part-time for about 10, 12 years. I didn't stay in it, but I learned certain things there. Let's say I picked up the letter A and the letter D. Let's say letters are just modules of information. And then I owned restaurants while I was actually investing in real estate. And I learned certain things from those restaurants. Let's say it's C and G. Let's say that as I was learning to do, buy, fix, and sell, I picked up a few more letters. Everything we do, whether I failed at it or succeeded, we're picking up enough letters to form the alphabet. I didn't see my success begin to really happen until I got to, let's say, the letter T, which means in life, the things that I did, picking up A and B, and then probably F and G, and then H and J and I and Q, just all weird letters, little bits of knowledge come together so that when you get A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, by the time you get to S, you have enough experience and wisdom in your life to begin to see results. The person who never learns, they just do one thing for a living, and that's it. They have fewer letters. It's very hard for them to be successful outside of whatever they're doing. Does that sort of make sense? Yeah, so we have to understand we're gathering letters, and it may not be in order. So what you've done, you may have failed, but you learned something, right? What you've done, you may have succeeded, but you learned something. All those things come together to form a coherent alphabet. And once you get to a certain level, that alphabet, we begin to see results. And that's important to consider.
Yeah. I don't look at failure as failures. I look at failures as the next step to success, right? I mean, that's just how I look at it. I feel like I'm very competitive. Growing up in my parents were very big on, going to school and getting this grade because that's just how their brains worked. You had to get this grade and you had to be competitive, and everybody else is competitive. So if you're missing a few points there, you're going to be, you're not going to be in the first, few people. So there was a lot of pressure as a kid. But, as you learn and as you grow, you realize that, it takes a while to actually, get to that stage where you learn that failure is not really failure. It just kind of gives you the insight as to what you need to do to get to where you need to be next, right? Yeah, just learning from it, right? And getting better and never giving up, right? Yeah, amazing. So I want to make sure that I'm showcasing whatever you do in the best light. So is there anything that you want to add that I may have missed or I haven't asked you?
Well, I mean, the things that I do, mainly I listen to people. Like, where are they? What is their situation? A lot of people have programs already pre-designed. I have pre-designed programs, but I know that each person is unique and they're in unique situations. So I had a gentleman who wanted to start building in the Dominican Republic. Now, I build in Belize. So I coached him through the process of how to set up a structure to start building offshore. I have somebody else who says to me, I can't get my business working. I don't know what the issue is. Well, I knew what the issue was, and I spent time helping him to understand his business better, understand himself better. So ultimately, although I do teach about real estate investing, and again, teaching is something that I still do, as well as I spend probably about 60% of my time doing my physical real estate and about probably 40% of my time teaching. I do modify my courses or my programs to suit somebody's need, as opposed to bending them to actually fit into a shoe. It's like somebody with a size 10 foot and I'm squeezing them into a size 9 shoe. It doesn't work. So I listen to what they need. And obviously I've been in the business for over 38 years and I've made enough mistakes and had enough successes. And I've gone through pretty much now 3 recessions, including recessions in Alberta, in BC, in the US, even when Ontario was phenomenal, that I know exactly how to, let's say, navigate this situation. And I'll tell you, what you're doing here today, even as a realtor who is providing information, I think this is amazing. I think this is what we need. People to literally say, hey, you know what? It's a Monday night. I can do something else, but I'm going to spend the Monday night to sit down and talk to a person who invests. And I want to show people that, hey, you know what? I care. And I think that's the best way to show people that you do care. So I think like this is amazing. But ultimately, I don't do one size fits all. I literally listen to a person's need, try to devise a situation to help them through, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year, and then I work with them. And I think that's important. And I like working with people doing unique things, you know.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, tell people where they can learn more, your website.
So my email is Mathew
email
with one T.
as well.
So MATHEW.F@RCCSOL.com. Now, when COVID struck for about 2 years, we were locked in. So instead of just sitting on my sofa eating pie, I spent 2 years creating 100 videos on every aspect of investing in real estate, as well as phone calls to property owners that were recorded. Of course, they gave me permission to keep those recordings. And so if somebody wants to take a look at that, it'd be rccsol.com slash, sales. And also, if they want to understand my trainings, rccsol.com slash training. But either way, you know what? They can drop me a quick hello at my email, and I can talk to them about that in more detail.
Perfect. So you've heard it. If you want to be in touch, get in touch with Mathew at rccsol.com. That's the website. And he's got a number of different trainings. He's got a 2-day coming up, and it's got some exciting topics that he's going to be talking about. So all of you who have clients that are looking to build or have an additional suite added in, or learn a little bit more, if nothing else, just learn a little bit more, you or your clients. I mean, I think it's always great to learn.
I really agree with that, because ultimately you pick up the confidence to explain to investors why they should invest with you, the confidence to talk to contractors so they feel as though you know what you're doing, so you don't feel ripped off. I think that's important. And then understanding the big picture of how a house is built, I think that really benefits a person.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming on and agreeing to come on with me. I'm totally honored that you made time in your schedule. So thank you so much. And for all of you watching, my name is Jacqueline Watson. I'm a realtor with Sutton Group Tower in Toronto. And every Monday, this is what I do. Don't forget, the podcast is Elementary, and you can find it on Apple, Spotify, Google, everywhere podcasts are aired, I guess. And it's a simple show. It's me interviewing you and giving you the opportunity to share and showcase your business. Sometimes I think we take people for granted. We don't learn what they have to offer. So it's nothing wrong in just filling your arsenal with all these great contacts. So join me every Monday, and if nothing else, take in the podcast as well. And if there's a topic you want me to dig a little deeper, or if you want to get on the show, get in touch. I'd be happy to interview you. So thanks again. And for all of you watching, thank you for spending your evening with us. It's a total honor that you've taken some time to spend with us. And I hope very much you will go on to rccsol.com.
Thank you so much.
And learn a bit more about Matthew's business.
Talk soon.
Thank you so much, Mathew.
Okay.
And thank you.
Okay, bye.
We'll talk soon. Yeah.